Hi, it's Brian Glicklick, and today we're going to talk about a case in reputation management. If you think you know the person I'm talking about today, you're probably not going to be right because I've obscured identifying details. Our client today is the CEO of a very large private business, and by very large, I mean it owned well over $1 billion in assets. He was also a leader in his business category. Unfortunately, he had become addicted to drugs and had been caught in public, unconscious, in his car, in a very compromising position. Media had reported the story extensively, and it was interfering with his business. Now, by interfering, here's what I mean. His business was made up of investors who gave him money in order to build and buy assets and then manage them. When these stories came out, it altered his Google search results so significantly that it was putting him in defense on every deal that he made. So he came to us looking for options to repair his reputation. The first thing I should say is that before he came to us, he'd already been through the legal system, and they had offered him diversion into a rehab program, and he had grasped that opportunity, gone to a significant rehab, gotten clean, and like many other people who had been addicted and no longer are, he was absolutely proselytizing. Now, when we go into reputation management in a matter like this, we're looking at three different kinds of imperatives. The first is to remove negative links that are flat out inaccurate. The second is to repair reputation by changing the narrative with the person that's involved. And the third is to reorder their search results so that the most negative things don't rise to the top of search. Let me explain how these things work. In the first context, we needed to understand the negative stories about him, how they were placed relative to other stories, and have an objective look at his search results. We have a special technique for using that because Google does not offer search results that are neutral unless you use a special kind of tool. What I mean is that your past search alters the results you get. Of course, he thought all his results were negative because he searched for himself on Google almost every day and kept clicking on the bad stories. So in his results, he was overwhelmed by negative stories. We used a neutral browser that was set to the geography of the place where he lived, which was one of the top 10 US markets, and we determined the negative links that were out there. And frankly, they were significant. If you are a person of some prominence, either in business or a celebrity, then there is almost no doubt that there are people that dislike you, and those people will celebrate your misfortune. Though that had altered his search results significantly, he had been written about extensively in major publications, and blogs had picked up their stories and written negative matters about him. So the first thing we did was get a neutral look at where he was now so that we could see how effective our work was going to be. Once we had that in place, we started looking for stories that were so factually flawed as to violate the terms of service of the platform they were on. Now, I should characterize this carefully because major media stories rarely can be removed. You're not going to take a story out of one of the top newspapers in America. Sometimes you can get it rewritten or disclaimed with new information if it was manifestly inaccurate, but even that's a lift. We did do that with two major publications and get them to add disclaimers to their story that told our side as well. But there were also a number of blogs and other web products that were not put out by major players, but were interfering with the search results, and they were manifestly inaccurate. So we worked with his legal counsel in order to have those completely removed from the internet because they were a violation of the terms of service of the platform they were on. We have a method of going about this that can be very effective when people are outright lying about you. Now, the second part of all of this is recharacterizing the reputation of the person that's involved. And that involves having a conversation about their interests, their specializations, their areas of competence. And in the case of our client, there were two things that stood out. One was that he really wanted to talk to others about the dangers of drug addiction, but he was especially interested in talking to other CEOs like himself about it because he found that they had very few places to take their experience. They often had no peers inside their organization that they could talk with because everyone worked for them. They had risen to the level they were at by feeling themselves to be super competent. So seeking outside emotional health counseling was something that was hard for them to do. One of the things we advised was that if he wanted to go in and talk about that, the best way to do it would be to form a foundation that was dedicated to that effort. He did so. We built a website for it, and he started to talk in public. He gave speeches, he made videos, he published articles about the dangers of addiction. Now, this didn't alter his search results in the sense that those stories rose up over some of the negative stories, but it did recharacterize his reputation so that he was seen as somebody who had learned from the problems that he had, and it was something that he could point to when these questions come up. But it was the next part of the puzzle that really changed his online reputation in terms of search results permanently. In his field, he was one of the top subject matter experts in the country. He knew more about the business he was in than almost anyone else. So we built an entire strategy for him to become a public subject matter expert, in this case on cable television. We advised him to build a studio in his home, which he did. It was small, not expensive, fairly easy to do, so that he'd be available 24/7 for commentary on his matter of expertise. We then built a resume for him that was specifically for cable networks, and we pitched him as a subject matter expert. Now, cable networks are always looking for and needing subject matter experts in all kinds of fields of endeavor. They publish these in specialized journals and websites that we track all the time. And they offer opportunities for people who have a true expertise to become publicly known for it. So we pitched him to cable networks, and very quickly one of them responded and tested him out by using him on a story that they had on the topic where he was expert. When they did so, of course, the video of that, along with the transcript, immediately rose near the top of his search results, and they wound up using him dozens of times over the coming years. And those stories wound up rising right to the top of his search results and pushed the negative stories out of the way. So let's think about what happened here for a moment. Not only did we move the negative stories down, but we established him as a national expert in his field of expertise that tended to discredit the stories. To the extent that didn't do the job by itself, we also showed that he had formed a foundation acknowledging responsibility for his past and what he had done to remediate it. So by the time we were finished, his reputation had been completely remodeled, and he was able to go on with his business and career in a way that was not only as good as it had been before, but actually better. A lot of reputation management is helping people who have had bad things happen to them, whether it was their responsibility or not, find a way to move on with their life positively and put the past in the past. Those are the strategies that we like to build and we feel best seeing come to fruition.